All right, we are finally live. I thought we were having difficulties, but it ends up we were having Brandon difficulties. I was hitting the wrong button. Anyway, welcome back to another lovely episode of the Brandon Bonanza podcast. I'm gonna quote I don't know who said it in Lord of the Rings. It might have been, I think it was Gandalf, but he says, "All who wander are not lost." That's
All
the
the
quote.
wonder are not lost. Interesting.
Yes, exactly. And I'm actually listening to that. But anyway, today my guest is Sean Bond, not James Bond. I'm sure he's used to that joke. But I got to pick on his name a little bit. But no. So what's up, Sean? I love your background. Ooh, look at that tree.
Thank you. Like
Ooh.
yours, a miney end of the world type of like you said, I think sandwormy.
Yeah. Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for having me on, and thanks for having the show. What got you into this?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Well, let's see. I started in the whole realm, I guess you could say, of conspiracy after I watched. Well, I think I was always interested. I was in the Marine Corps in the 90s, and oh, now my mouse wants to work. Great. And I had a sergeant who would talk about the black helicopters and all that crazy stuff, So I was always interested and perked in that, and like interested in like aliens, I guess you could say, or whatever, Bigfoot, But then I watched that movie Zeitgeist, probably like 2006 or something like that, and that's what really woke me up to a lot of different things. And then from there, I started DJing in 2008 or 9. So I kind of lost that thread for a while. I always had it in the back of my mind, but later on I got into, basically started watching Joe Rogan in like 2012, and that led me to like Eastern religions, spirituality, and also to like anarcho-capitalism and libertarianism. And then from there, I got into studying history, like real history, what could have happened, then symbolism because of that. And then from there, I got back into a lot of this quote unquote conspiracy stuff. But I kind of have a feeling that it's not really conspiracy because people are just doing things out in the open. They're telling us so. But yeah, I got into,
Spoilers.
what's that?
Spoilers, right?
Yeah. They're always they're always doing pranks, as Owen Benjamin would say.
Killed half your population.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a prank. Yeah, exactly. Well, most of them choose it, but just like these wars, I was telling a friend of mine recently, I'm like, the way they used to do the eugenics back in the day was they would just have a big war and have all the able-bodied males get in a field and like run into machine guns. So now at least it's like a choice they have to make to get a experimental medical serum or whatever. But I got into symbolism, which led me to tarot, which I was already working on myself. So then I used the tarot to further that work. And then I started sharing it with other people. And I just kind of went down things from there and looked into different stuff, looked a bunch into like occult ideas. And I got back into Western Christian ideas, I guess you could say. But even before that, it was like Western Hermeticism or whatever. But I started to actually enjoy the Bible, looking at it in a different light than the way I was raised with it. So it brought me back home again. It's just like the prodigal son or whatever, or like the path of the fool. It's kind of like, you're home when you don't recognize it or something like that. I don't know the quote, but so that's like a brief history into how I did that. And now I use the tarot once in a while, and I do I'll kind of like, I could decode dreams for people, and basically I'm just doing that through symbolism. Once you get a handle on symbolism, it's kind of, for me, it was kind of easy to do that. And I also do tarot readings for other people too, if they want, but it's not like a thing I do a lot now, but I will do them for certain people. And sometimes friends hit me up every once in a while. So that's really fun. I actually have a friend that hit me up. He wants, big shout out to Sammy. I did a reading for him on one of the shows, and he wants me to pull some more cards for him. So I'm gonna do that later on. But yeah, so that's about where I stand now. And then on the weekends, I DJ weddings. So that's how I support myself and save all this money. And yeah, that's about me.
Good. That's
What about
awesome.
you?
Yeah. Uh, like what I do kind of stuff.
How'd you get? Oh, well, like,
Oh, how
I
did I
guess,
get
how
it?
did you wake up to, that's a good start. Like, where were you before, or did you always kind of know, or was there like a moment where you're like, what the hell?
All that, like, and I have remnants when you said your pathway. That's like part of mine as well. I had a lot of weird experiences, a lot of crazy long dreams and visitations, but like it always like lasts a certain amount of time, and then I try to explain it to people, and they're like, "Wow, you got a great imagination." And then like, "What's for dinner?" And then other
Yeah.
muggle stuff that comes up, and then you never get it brought up, and nobody cares. I know everyone's out for themselves. So it's like a constant wave of distractions, and then going through the school system, and then eventually getting out of that, and then having it come up again more with freedom. Yeah, got visited a whole bunch, both negative and positively, and then had to like got attacked by demons, and had to learn skills and abilities and call for help, and that like things came and helped me and gave me a whole bunch of wisdom, and very dramatic experiences that you can't I can't say they weren't real. And now it's like the experience. I used to be very skeptical, so very scientific, and then now trying to explain my experiences with spirituality, and digging deep into that, and all the compressed time, and then bringing the solutions out to the world that helped me. And then I do healings for people, and uh, release people's pain over a distance and trapped emotions, and help them upgrade themselves, unlock dormant abilities. And I like to find all the different ways to play this game, and do what I came here to do, and help people to do the same. So that's a gist of it.
Love it. How old were you when you started to trust yourself? Like,
Hmm.
trust your intuition and say, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe it's all these people. Because what you said reminds me of the Bhagavad. Well, it's not the Bhagavad Gita, but in this version of, it's like an audiobook that Ram Dass is just giving lectures. He talks about the origin story of Krishna before he comes to the Bhagavad Gita. And he says, like, when he was a baby, like he was switched or whatever at birth, and his mom one time opened his mouth because he was eating mud, and when his mom looked inside, she saw the entire universe, and she was like, oh my god. And then Krishna just kind of like gave her forgetfulness, and she was like, oh no, I got to sit down, like. So that's kind of what happens when you try to explain this to somebody. Then they're just like, all right, well, the Giants playing tonight, you're like, didn't you just hear what I said?
Yeah, right. Uh, yeah, it's like dealing with the haze sleep spell, and people don't want to hear, and their ego disrupts and boundary prison keeps them sleep. For trust has been a weird thing with me, I guess. Had tried trust a while ago, because it makes it sound really nice and stuff, until you get betrayed. So it's about like, oh, balancing trust with not trusting people farther than you can throw them, but training yourself to throw them farther. And then learning about psychology and people's tells, and who you can trust with, and who's loyalty, and with trusting myself and universe, God, and other forms of like what this earth is. That's been tested with each subject matter. Usually I always have a little bit of skepticism with everything, and it starts creating with what I know, and built off it, and narrowing things down, looking for evidence, and then looking for other people's experience. It's definitely like a peekaboo type of thing between what you can see in the senses of the seen world versus the unseen world, and seeing if it applies and can be shared with multiple people. And so that's why I like to go into the focuses of body technology abilities, because a lot of it's stuff you can actually tangibly see in results. The history of the world, I'll like tune into a lot of things that exist and keep affecting people, and with what's important, with what's happening in all the different realms and astral and dimensions stuff. I like keep a map that's like updating constantly, and with what I feel, and can challenge and resolve those feelings into the positive if they're going in a negative downward spiral of entities and stuff. Yeah, I'll train my abilities back to deal with each, and if there's success in it, shown. So that's what I've been able to go with trust, but it's very scientific. I don't really give faith to things unless they deserve it. My faith and hope usually applies to things that are like infinite aspects of reality that are reliably strong. Like, no matter what happens, everything's going to be all right. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be the worst, but it's going to be all right. And it's going to continually get better with the empowerment of the light forces and how well things are. Of course, the dark is also going to try to keep stealing and then up its game, but that there's still a remedy in the end. And then it's like the faith technology and how the placebo effect works in amplifying your ability to heal and faith heal and like be healthy in that state of reality and affirming that. That's why I usually use the placebo belief system. But I like knowingness preferably than belief, because I've seen them as like a tree of knowledge kind of thing, and belief kind of overlays with that. But it's skews along with experience and the filter of what we want to be true. And if it's not strong and if it's not like particularly aligned with reality, it's parasitic and it drains a person of energy. So I'll like look how to trim that tree and then more align it with knowingness and challenge the things, and then it will cause deep empowerment and reflection.
Well, what you said too about knowing is important, because knowing actually builds on your belief too, or builds your belief up on something. If you have knowledge of something, or if you have experience with it and it's worked before, then you're more apt to believe it more, which is going to make it work more, right? So yeah, that's why I think a lot of people these days, their belief lies in like a white lab coat, and they'll get healed by a petrochemical medicine. And it's just their belief doing it because the doctor gave it to me, and so it's going to make me better. And it does, but it also has these crazy side effects. And I see that in all aspects of society. But, I just look at that as, because I break people down. I bring them down into two classes. Now there's probably there's a gray area, but like people are either slaves or they're masters. And really all it is they're a slave to like the inner voice in their head, the ego, whatever you want to call it. And then there's masters who've mastered that in their own mind. And then you have light and dark, which is another distinction. So you have, people that are, we'll just call it light and dark. So dark people who take advantage of these people who are slaves and make them their slaves, technically, as above, so below, right? You can only be a slave if you're a slave to yourself. I mean, you can be locked in a cage and still not technically be a slave. And then you have people who are light, so they're kind of helping. I think there's some kind of forces out there, but it can't directly always help. I think it helps people who are trying to help themselves. And this also goes for, I think, entities too, like spiritual beings. I think there's light and dark ones, and I don't feel like they really have free will in that function of the realm, and that let's say they're manifesting as more of energy. That's why we can't always see them, whereas we're having a physical experience. Well, we think anyway. So, but since they're spiritual, I feel like they come to the beck and call of people, and people are summoning them and not even knowing it just by their behavior and their belief system. So like a heroin addict might have certain synchronicities where he gets hooked up with a heroin dealer or whatever. And I think it's that part of the darkness of the realm, these spirits or demons or whatever you want to call them. And then there's light ones that'll also come to your aid once you start doing the right thing. Or I say right thing, right? But I think honestly, I try to look at it in regards to both of them are kind of right, like they're necessary, dark and light, and they're playing a dance on one level, right? And in the physical level, someone's trying to come up to me and hurt me, or somebody I know, it's a different story. I'm not gonna be like, oh, this is great, man, but on a level, if I had to say what's going on here, I think that they're providing the resistance that people like us need to get better. And then hopefully as we heal ourselves, we heal the world, and those people will be healed also. And then I got this kind of like from the Law of One. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's like a channeled work, but they say that there's entities that go up to the next level of consciousness or the next density as dark entities. Not as many, but some just polarized to like over 95% darkness or whatever they use, and whatever terminology they use. And they'll go to the, I guess you could say, next realm or whatever, next density of consciousness, negative. And I think they're the ones that kind of help the ones here. But they, like I said, I feel you don't really have free will at that point. It's really only here. It's like a gift that we have that people don't even realize. And if you look at it the wrong way, which a lot of people do, I feel that it leads to suffering. But if you could look at it in the right way, for me, it leads to a lot of comedy. Like I always say, I think Jesus was hilarious in the Bible, and they just wrote all that stuff out, or maybe didn't translate. I think he was a comedian, he's like, like he went in, I've said this before, like, everyone tells the story how he flipped the tables in the temple of the money changers. Like he went in there and he flipped the tables, and he was probably like, the tables have turned, like silly humor. But anyway,
It'd be great. I love a reimagining of that story where he's a comedian.
yeah, I think I got a lot of material for that, but that's about where I stand in this whole thing. So I don't even get upset anymore. I mean, I'm still going to get mad once in a while. I'm not like a perfect, but I think that's what I attain to realize, to try to look at it in that light. And then on the physical, you deal with things as they come up, but not get like caught up in the anger. Like if I get mad, it's okay. I try not to act out of it unless, it helps me with like defense or something. But even then I try not to. I'm thinking that I don't want to rage spiral as I'm like defending myself, because that could probably be addictive too.
Yeah, and yeah, I have an opportune time for different emotions. I don't think anger is like bad in particular. Every emotion has a purpose. Anger, rage, hate, wrath is like the spectrum of that polarization. That the opposite is love and the compassion. It's when it's an aspect of the solar plexus, when you come up against something that's a threat or is challenging, or it's spurred from the creation of you wanting to protect something you love or aspect of yourself, etc. And your hate is to be an offense. So it's used in like offensive psionic tech. Most of the time when people feel that frustration is when the power can't get out. To each time you come up against a threat, the universe gives you an equal amount of power to overcome it. It's usually pressurized or imprisoned in someone's solar plexus, so they can't let it out, and it builds up as pressure. And it like that pressure is what causes people to get anger to the degree where it messes with their lives. I recommend people take time to get away from people and let out their anger into like something that they love to do, such as working out, running, arts, painting, singing, dancing, all this kind of stuff. And then so that it busts through the walls that hold back their power, and then combine it with love, like Bruce Lee enjoying a fight, and then it will turn into something that actually gets stuff done. It can even take care of the thing that you're angry about and make it disappear as a like, if you're like, oh, disagreement with this person, and like they're all like full of emotion and stuff, and it's causing you angry. If you get away from them and like detach and then let out all the anger and then combine it with love, maybe there was some demonic entity that was trying to pit you against each other, and that goes away, and then they all calm down and the problem goes away. It's interesting.
Yeah, I love the advice that you give to people, or the suggestion. We won't say advice. That's a weird word, right? But yeah, no, that's all good. Those are all good methods. I've used those myself too. I think it betters yourself. It's better than sharing it with other people in a negative way. Our chat is crushing right now, though, by the way. I'm telling you, like, this chat. So we have free will lays in potential until one creates himself. That's Nigel. And he also said resistance is the second force of all creation and is necessary for anything to grow. Wow. Zero Last said angels and demons seem to behave like algorithms. If I could talk. Yes, I do agree. Brandon, this is what Shannon said. Some people could be on the path to mastery, knowing and seeing, but not yet a master. I'm in that pile. Yes, I do believe you're in that pile, Shannon. I would agree with that. Prometheus Peanut, look into Jesus when he was forced to go see Caiaphas by Pontius Pilate. Jesus essentially mocks Caiaphas, as being an empty vessel. Jesus absolutely was based like when he flipped the tables. Yeah, dude, this chat gets it. I'm telling you. It's great.
I could imagine calling you are nothing but an empty vessel. It's pretty deep in the insults. I love it.
Yeah, and I could try to twist it into where it would be like a joke, like he's like just up there like, I'm Jesus, I'm turning water into wine. There's a 3 wine minimum at my shows, guys, like
the healing
selling Jesus merch,
Exactly. Yeah. All that stuff they cut out of the Bible, right? It's all jokes. They can't have people freeing themselves with comedy.
Yeah.
Catholics.
That's an important one to disperse anger, really quickly, because that's what I would do a lot. I used to watch like South Park back in the day. I'd always watch stand-up comedy. One of my favorite people to watch online is Owen Benjamin, just because he's hilarious. Like, nobody agrees with what anybody says, if you agree exactly with what one person agrees with, it's probably something, but anyway, he's hilarious and he makes me laugh. So that's how I used to deal with anger a lot. And then I learned to channel it into like a blog, into books, into comedy, like you said, dancing. So I'm a DJ, so I dance around a lot and do that when I'm working. And looking back on that, it's like all stuff that's helped me feel better with my anger issues. Cause not, a lot of people that watch this show probably don't realize, but I used to be, I was always the cool Brandon that love, but I was much quicker to anger. Like I would just lose it on somebody. Sometimes it was called for, like I was DJing at a bar and this lady would come up and be really annoying. And then she came up like 3 times, and that's it. 3 times. Here you go. And she'll say something and I'll just be like, you fucking cunt, like get the fuck out of here or something, like just go from like nice, funny to like, dude, but then also I've raged on other things, mostly when I like do something stupid or hit my head, I get all pissed off, and now I'm just like, yep, that's about right. So anyway, you were gonna say something. You still have that point?
Yeah, I'll bring on it. Yeah, I do the same. I have to control my anger. After I was like awakening and amplifying the shit out of my sonic abilities and output, I realized that my emotions have effect on people. I was like meditating, and my mom's boyfriend was mowing the lawn, and he was like trying to, I guess, joking with me and like putting the spraying me with the leaves, and he accidentally ran over some of my stuff, and that it was like all like messed up, and I was like, I got really pissed off, and I like yelled at him, and he started having heart palpitations and a heart attack. So I was like, shit, I can't do that anymore. So I can't be mad around people. But I do, I work out all the time. So I put it into that, and I just, I hug, there's like a big ball of fire inside, and sometimes it's like raging, and it's good to like do breath work and then hug it with compassion and love, and that like allows it to transmute, and then it starts to erupt like crazy strong, and I turn that all into like strength, and I like can work out all day, and it's beautiful. But it's like a roaring lion inside you, and you gotta kind of let it out.
Yeah, I love it.
And the where it gets bad is if it's like plumbing throughout your body. If the plumbing's not working well and it pressurizes, that's when it causes a person to lose their will. But yeah, it can be really positive if you turn it into a bunch of solar plexus stuff like power and magic and all that. But it once it let it all out and it depressurizes, then it's just flowing like a nice sun. It's like shining brightly, and it feels wonderful and loving, and you don't have any anger. So that's why I like doing that. You also brought up like how people, without knowing it, summon and like which goes into conjuration, like with some people open portals with drugs and different states of consciousness and other stuff. Yeah. I've been like going deep into researching all the different tools and tech that we have in body tech, and it's brought up stuff having to do with the higher and the lower self, and parts of their reflection and how to bring them to unity. The lower self contains a lot of stuff besides the ego, the shadow, all like evil, all these things you can apply titles to. One of them is evocation body, that I call it that anyway. And the higher self has invocation body, which makes sense with high magic in ability to summon and conjure entities. Invocation, of course, bringing from the higher realms, and like the angelics, the gods, your godhead, your own higher self, etc. And then evocation is earthly entities or infernal entities, which is going into the evil spectrum, or neutral or positive, but like of the earthly plane. Yeah, the people have these parts of their subconscious mind that we're like a map of the universe and everything in reflection, and all these entities that are real entities that have their own history and what they've been, if they have had a physical body or not, or just accumulate a whole bunch of power and make an impact on the observable realities, as well as other planets if they're older, like the old elder gods and stuff. Then, like, how Magick's like going, is that are these entities real or not, or are they a reflection of the subconscious? And it's both. Humanity has like a bunch of them. Pretty much all the Goetia demons and angels are also in the subconscious, so everyone has them entangled with them. A bunch of we're a super hybrid of 10,000 plus species. Is a huge DNA experiment. It's like to make us the best super tech that allows you to enter any reality or star system or realm. And we have angels and demons bringing their DNA to us as like a chess move. So they're all reflective internally. So we can work with them or not. Sometimes they can already be dominating us. I don't recommend summoning demons. I recommend figuring out what are the demons that are already messing with you and getting them in order. If you can possibly become friends with them, that's the best thing. If they're evil, then you might have to constrain them and either banish them, or if they can't really be banished, if they have a internal connection with you or whatever, then you have to like capture, compress, seal, all these kind of things, to get them into a space where they're not able to dominate or fuck with your will. And then bring them to healing, love, turn on their empathy, see all the wounds that happen to them. A lot of these demons are like fractured beings that have been dominated and can't create their own light anymore, so they shut down and they steal from other things. A lot of evil doesn't have their own authority, so they steal. So there's always a solution in that with knowing the story of it, and that's what I like to do with these demons, to bring them to healing as they go through like quarantine realms away from people, and then possibly earn their way back here and then become a united force to benefit humanity. And as I unite with everything. Right, anyway. So yeah, what have you noticed with like entities that have come and interacted with you or other people around?
I think I experience it. Well, I guess we experience this all in our own different way. It's probably has something to do with, you could call it like your astrology or your personality type or whatever. It's how you perceive things in the physical world and stuff, and in the spiritual realm. I think for me, it's just I get feelings, so I feel a lot. So I'll just have like a feeling to do something that I shouldn't do, or urge, and that's kind of how I look at it. So what I do is I try to find the space between that urge and my action. Instead of just like, if I want to go to the refrigerator, for example, instead of just going to the refrigerator, I'm like, am I really hungry? Stuff like that. Instead of going to do something, I'm like, is this really what I want to do? And I find that it's like a battle, but it's not glamorous like in Hollywood. You're not like fighting a demon with a sword, but it is the hardest work that you can do. I think it was kind of, they use that symbolism of like St. George slaying the dragon, but really it's just an internal battle that's just as hard as fighting a dragon, because you're kind of fighting against yourself. So you're having this kind of like a dialogue with this other part of yourself. And most people, or a lot of people, or even I in the past, would just go along with that because it sounded like the right thing to do. But then once you realize that it might not be, that's when the battle starts. So that's kind of how I experienced it. And then that's the dark beings. I guess the light, I've experienced just different synchronicities. I've had feelings about things. I've had feelings about people. Like on the show, had guests on and they were talking about something and I'm thinking we should go here with this. And then they just say it. And I'm like, I think I felt that, stuff like that. I talk about one of my friends, Kaylee, who lives in Australia, and I had a weird feeling with her. And then she hit me up and was like, telling me about this stuff with her roommate. That was a guy. I mean, it's nothing bad, but it's just, I get these feelings. And so I think that's how it works. I guess you could say in the positive way. So I try to focus more on that, and the negative stuff, I kind of just let it work itself out, like do it till you're done, but also realize that there is a way out and a turning point you can make. And it really just comes down like the everyday little decisions that you make. It's all in Tolkien. We were talking about that before we started, but like, I think even Gandalf says that he's like, it's evil's beaten by the everyday. Somebody in the chat could probably get this right though, by like the everyday actions of people, by good people. Speaking of the chat, shout to Grounded Extracts who's in the chat. Bane Bear, 7-Eleven Lucas, Caribe Root. What's up? Some of my favorite people. And they are just on fire in there. So yeah, chess moves is what Grounded Extract says. Exactly. And Flattoberfest, guys, I think this weekend coming up. So if you're going to go to Flattoberfest, go check that out. I have to work. I would love to see all of you guys there, even though I'm a realm earther. We all know this, but it's fine. We can all get along because you guys are awesome. And Grounded Extracts, check out his products. He has some really awesome products. So he's been on the show before. Anywho, yeah. So that's about how I kind of, I guess, work with that. I don't really see things, but I've learned, like I've had intense dreams, and I've also learned that everybody does have their own unique experience. So I don't try to discount people, even if it's something that can seem fantastical, unless I think they're lying. And then I have a pretty good sense on that because I'm a poker player. And honestly, I don't try, like you were saying about trust, I look at it a little differently, but I kind of just stay a little away from people unless they're into what I'm into. And if they're into what I'm into, I know I could pretty much trust them unless they're just faking it all, which would be awesome. I mean, if somebody was that level, I would probably want to get to know them anyway. Be like, how the hell do you, but anyway, yeah. So that's where I think I'm at with that. But yeah, I just kind of accept what anybody says as their experience because it's their truth that they're speaking. And I can look at it even allegorically and mine that truth out and what it can mean for me or my worldview. That's kind of how I look at it.
Right. And it's not really much point to like arguing with them if they're other than like if you find somebody that's really good at debating and actually can emotionally control themselves to stay friends with you afterwards, then that's a good thing to do. But Otherwise it's like, let people be their free will, and everyone, the more everyone expands into their experience and gets more in data, the more we all benefit. So it's like in the end, let us all like go off and share our journey.
Yeah,
If you
100%.
want to go ahead.
Oh, I was just said 100%. And then really quickly too, shout out, speaking of conjuring, I conjured a paraplegic bear who's now in the chat because I texted him and I said I'm live. He's always like, text me, oh, what's up? Adrian's here. Realm member has a ring to it. That's pretty funny. I'm a realm member.
Yeah,
Speaking
tell
of
me
those,
about this realm Earth theory, because
oh yeah.
I also believe in realms, so I'd say that's a good
So
aspect.
yeah, it's definitely. So I think what we're experiencing now is okay. So basically you could like take a microscope and zoom in on your hand and or anything, and there's really no solid. It's all just little particles moving around, bumping around against each other allegedly or whatever, right? And we experience it as physical. So if you look at that aspect, plus if you're not a materialist, right, and you have an open mind and you say, well, people say we're light, like the new age, like we're all light beings. And I think there's a little bit of there's truth in that. I think we're energy, which light is energy. And I feel like we are having this physical experience, or we're being tricked into it somehow, that we're having a physical experience where our actions matter. We have free will. There's like a karma law out there, whatever, natural law, you can call it, whatever it is, like things will come back to you. Or you can create ripples in this realm. And I feel like the way I like to describe it is like the figure eight. This is something that came to me, and where it crosses is a cross, right? And the cross is a huge symbol. So I think a cross, even they do this cross, the X or the regular cross. I think it's a reference to this realm, and I think the eight is like the infinity symbol. So it's just something going around forever. And when that say it's a dot, it gets to that cross right there. I feel like that's where it experiences the physical. And then when it comes back out around, it's spiritual, and then it comes into the physical. But so that's kind of my belief, because think about like if people think we're on, and again, I always say it doesn't matter what you think, as long as you're living in accordance with the golden rule. We'll say, in accordance with nature and all that, it's cool. We could be friends. We could be 90s friends. And then, but we could have a fun debate, like you said, right, about all these things. So I think people that believe we live on a rock in the middle of infinite void of a vacuum, I think people that think we're on a flat plane with a dome that's physical, or people who think we're in a simulation, my argument would be, isn't that all just materialism? Like, that's the way I would attack it if I had a debate,
Love that.
And it's a good way for me to come at it, because as also being a realm earther, it sounds even crazier than flat earth, but it's more like crazy hippie, like, oh yeah, this guy's funny and silly. Like, whereas if somebody's like, I'm a flat earther, and someone's like, this guy's fucking stupid, and they'll like yell at him. But with me, they're like, oh yeah, you're just crazy, man, which is great though, because it allows me to get a foot in the door with comedy too, because I'm going to talk about this a little bit in my comedy. I plan to, but anyway, so that's kind of what realm earth is, and I believe it's just all consciousness at the end of the day. So everybody talks about the ice wall, like flat earthers will talk about that there might be more land or whatever. I think that we basically, with our consciousness, we just create collectively this realm that we live in. And I feel there were times before when people were separated, where like India and like other parts of the realm were different realms, right? And then because of somehow the cross pollination or contamination of this, we'll call it the collective consciousness, we manifested this whole globe, or however you look at it. And that's our limits right now. So I don't think there's any going beyond the ice wall, if there's an ice wall for us, unless we believe it. And then I think if we truly believe it, like we talked about earlier, through some kind of knowing, then maybe we can create other land. But I don't think that's what we're here to do. I think we're here to learn lessons, and I think it's some kind of experience we chose to do. I think that because everything that I see is a choice at the end of the day. Sometimes people get forced into stuff, or maybe they're killed or whatever. And they weren't supposed to, kind of exactly, like it wasn't their choice or whatever. Like it wasn't a consequence that led to them, like if you go kill somebody's brother and then like a few years, like one of their cousins kills you, but if for some reason it's like an innocent death that wasn't brought upon you, I think maybe that has an effect on where you go in the next spiritual realm. But I think most of these things are choices. Like with this experimental medical serum, they just kept threatening people. Like my brother was getting emails from his job. He's like, "You better get this. You better get it." And he's like, "I ain't fucking getting this thing." And he never did. And then they just stopped sending the emails one day. And now it's like it never happened. It's like, I don't, sorry. Did we just threaten your whole way of life? And then it was an empty threat. Yeah. And I think that's how this happens. Like a lot of wars, I guess wars were different because they could draft people, but even then you had draft dodgers and there's probably ways to get out of it. But I feel like a lot of it's just choice. So if you take the as above, so below, I feel like we were chosen to come here and experience what debt slavery is and being born as slaves, and then having the choice to become masters and free ourselves and thus help other people. And really actually kind of goes back and heals your whole family line because everybody's come before you. You're just like an avatar of them, of all your ancestors, right? So you heal that up to the point when it wasn't slavery again before, because it probably goes in cycles. And then as you do it, you elevate to a higher level of consciousness, and then people around you can choose to do it because you become an example. And they're like, wow, if he could do it, maybe I could do it. Maybe it's not so impossible. If Brandon could be an awesome wedding DJ and do comedy and write books and do podcasts, maybe I could do something. Some people do that. And then when they start to ascend, people around them also start to ascend. And for me, it works a lot better than trying to directly tell somebody about like PCR tests and like, haven't you heard of terrain theory and all this, some people are into it, but most people are just like, yeah, but the Giants are playing. Like, I got to go watch the Giants play the Jets or whatever the hell's going on, but yeah, so that's
Correct.
basically Realm Earth in a nutshell. I like it because, like I said, it's not offensive and it's kind of hard to disprove it also because I realize that I'm just making my best guess. I have no idea. And I think the key is if you can accept the mystery that you don't know what it is, it's really going to help you out because people get attached, I feel, to having to know because it's control, because there's fear. So if you can let go and just say it's a mystery and maybe it's a realm, then I think you're, I don't know, it's just better for you. It makes you a better person, I think. It's less weight to have that fear and
Right.
worry. There's nothing you could do
Exactly.
about it,
Yeah, it's a good wrap around any like censorship and that it dovetails into a lot of old beliefs. Do you believe in like other realms, like in the tree of Yggdrasil and the light realms and the realms of death and stuff? Or
I'm glad you asked that because that kind of just blew my mind of what I said before. So I think it's possible that there were all these realms and now a lot of them are connected because of this consciousness. But I do feel there's either another realm we go to when we when we die and we leave this body, or it's still this realm. We just have a different form. Maybe this realm as we see it is all there is. It just depends on your perspective. If you are a spirit or you say, or like a person, or you can see things, then it becomes something different. But what if this is it, that would be crazy. And that's just a theory I have. There could be other places where we go to, but what if it's like you think you're in another place, but you're a spirit and you could just see things differently? It's like Frodo when he puts the ring on, or anytime you see like what's that show that's really popular, Stranger Things, when they go into like the other side or whatever, it's just a reflection of this side. And that's why like mirrors are huge and water reflects, and it's like a reverse image. So that's what I believe. I do believe that definitely other realms, but I just don't know if they're overlapping here or they're separate.
mm, I'd say there's a lot. I'd agree with that, and I'd say it's a combination of both. I'll address each of your things you brought up. Uh, I, based on what all this crazy amount of data that blasted in my brain during temporal dilations and of compressed time, with time and space, a lot of it works as from a singularity. And what would everything look like if you imagined space existing but no time? And what would it look like if there were time but there was no space, or all space collapsed into a singularity and there's no like distancing factor? And like, what's the meaning of distancing factor between the stars and stuff? And is there a way in travel in consciousness in which you can collapse the distance between a off distant star or whatever, another realm in coordinates? And it's like with what I've been able to do in traveling these realms, you can gain the coordinates, but a lot of it's you need like a map or a key or a like business card. A lot of it's waiting in the human body because we have all this inherited DNA and from different species that have inhabited these realms and had the key, and so there's like granted access with people that are in the realm, or being able to triangulate them, or soul family, or the realm liking you itself, or its guardian letting you in. So there's like VIP sections. There's like heavenly realms where they keep out all negative stuff, and then the quarantine realms where they keep the negative stuff that invades from other realms on. When they're trying to invade a realm and they're not granted access, the guardian will push them into the quarantine realm. There's a lot of other, that's the tree of death and Ygritte in like Kabbalah, and the Kilopoth and the quarantine hell realms and the prison realms, and then the heaven realms are like the tree of light is what I call. But there's way more than just the 9 primary incarnating realms. I call those the middle ones, and they're like basis foundational. They'll have purposes. They'll like have a specific type of race that can survive in them and different trains. And there's many magic ones. There's billions that I've seen that Earth makes because she's very popular. A lot of beings want to be here because it has an effect on everything else in the population of the entire universe and beyond. And then they link in trees going up macro wise to all the planets in the solar system, making realms and other planets and stars, and going up to galaxies and universe and big spectrum. So all these bubbles you can call realms. Universe would be the expansion of all that we can see and interact with. That's fairly well quarantined from wanting to interact with each other, unless you have travel access through like black holes and stuff. Yeah, and then with the whole stitching thing of reality bubbles and how it used to be like where all these continents and stuff were their own realm, I'd say you're onto something there. It's hard for me to even put in for me to put in words. I'm not an arbiter of truth or anything. I if anyone comes up with things or tells me something that to make myself more correct or more aligned with truth, I'll happily accept it. Thank you. So with the stitching of reality, that came to my mind as well in a few different times when I was getting downloads of the concept of what happened at around past civilizations, their collapse, and the uncreating of like huge catastrophes, rift wars of rips in time, splitting the fabric of reality and having other realms merge with each other, other dimensions, the astral, and like points and back and forth between the future and time, and then these entities hacking into the reality and messing with it to where they steal authority from other beings, capture them, and they're trying. This really, really dark, evil presence essentially had the purpose of like saying, "Hey, fuck the being that created this universe," and it thought winning would be gain control of the universe, uncreate it, and then recreate it in its own image. It succeeded a little bit, but it not entirely, because it's underestimating all the factors of it. And so there's all this collapse of reality concepts that happened at the fall of Atlantis that were being healed and restitched together. Earth seems to have come out of the fall in a coma, and then she's like healing through that, and a lot of the light beings incarnating to retake back the planet in this realm. Uh, so this also came to me in dreams, a vision, and one mushroom trip that I had,
Mhm.
where I saw this outer perspective of what it looked like for all the beings that are holding up the reality and keeping it together, and how, the strain of that, and what it was like when all of that started breaking down, and it's like everything kind of goes into blackness and void, and all these bubbles of reality are trying to hold themselves up against this darkness as they keep their reality stabilized as it was disintegrating and
Sounds
getting
like me in
devoured.
2020. Sorry.
Yeah. There's attempts with that too, but like
Yeah,
not
no, go ahead. No,
to
keep
this
going.
level. But yeah, like where things break apart, and it's a very hectic, chaotic, and yeah, it's awful. And so I had those a few different type of experiences that reminded me of that event having to do with Atlantis. And this is a huge ego wound that like lasts throughout everyone that was passed down the DNA lineage, and people are resolving is like the biggest wound to them that's limiting them, that shuts down people's abilities. Um,
Yeah, dude.
so that it keeps painting it back and giving evidence of something that happened at that big period of time that I attribute to that. Uh, so it's like after that, the recreational events where Earth and the universe, Earth is the most affected by this, and then it's like kind of core, like all these stars and solar systems, if you were to say that, start quarantining it from spreading, because the attempt of this being was to uncreate the entire universe. So it didn't get past a certain level, and it was held back and is being compressed as a trauma and quarantined. That's the whole thing of this quarantine that we have on this planet spiritually, is to compress this big darkness that stole a bunch of tech from the light forces and is using it to be a king of the hill and try to control this area and our species and all the goodies of this planet. So then Earth is attempting to come out of a coma, have a force of all these chess moves come in and help her heal up the planet, retake their parts, stitch the reality together, which I was getting with all these reality conquerors like Genghis Khan, Alex the Great, and all these other forces going in different realities and uniting them under one time frame. Uh,
A
and
calendar.
that's what, yeah, and like how Native Americans, they could, some of them couldn't see the ships that showed up, only the shamans did. It's like this perspective of consciousness, and being able to translate data in the holograms that are linking each other in a hologram of light splitting infinitely, which and when people say simulation, a lot of people go to like, oh, we're in a video game and it's like this low tech thing. I think it's it can be described as a simulation, and I know about simulation tech, but it's way more advanced than a lot of people want to admit. And I like to see each. This one's a rare type of intricate layer within layer of holograms within holograms, but each like planet, star system, galaxy, etc., will be simulations within the simulations, and all that will house.
If I could
And you can
break in
like,
really quickly,
yeah,
the way that the thing that I left out of realm theory, the way that it matches up so well with simulation theory is exactly what you said. And what I say is I say that computers are a physical representation that we make of our brain, right? So we know everything in the, that's how kind of how our brain works. But most people understand it in the language of computers because they don't think about themselves and stuff. So I think that's why this manifests this way. People talk about resets and like all these events that line up and like civilizations will experience in they express the same behavior and they go through the same kind of falls. And I think that's because of it's a product of our brain, which is a product of this realm. So I think simulation theory is a really good way to explain it. Except the key factor is I don't like you. I don't think we're in a computer, or I don't know exactly what you think. I don't think we're like hooked up in a in some physical thing, because that's more materialism. Maybe we're in a simulation, but the real world is that way. I don't know for sure, but that's the way I explain it. I'm like, exactly. It's just like simulation theory, except you just got to get a little more spiritual. That's all.
exactly, yeah, it's like a dream,
Go
and
ahead. Yeah,
it's
it is like a
an
dream. I
entertainment.
love everything you're saying. Another thing I want to say too before I forget is when I think of channeled work like the Law of One, I don't read it and think that's exactly how it is. I feel that channeled work and the stuff you're talking about and the stuff we experience comes to us in the mind frame that we can understand it. So if somebody thinks about space and all the planets and stars and stuff, it's going to come to them that way. If they're a realm theory person, it's going to come to them that way. Who's right? We don't know. But there's a lot of truth in what you're saying, and I can mine through it, and I understand exactly what you're saying, because you're basically what you're doing is you're just trying to describe a feeling and a thought that you have, but you have this limited way that we do of speaking using words, and we all have different worldviews because of what we went through. So I could sit here and try to pick it apart and say, no, no, no. Or I could say, no, this guy's got truth. What can I learn from him? And just, accept it, like I said. So yeah, anyway, continue, because I love what you're saying. I'm on
Yeah,
board.
and I'm rooting for your realm theory to go out and get more popular, because this is
It can't get too
the concept
popular though, then they'll try to co-opt it and then there'll be like realm earth fucking warnings under stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and you picked good terms that don't have much demonization behind it, and
Yeah.
people
Oh yeah.
behind it because they're already investing in movies with it.
Totally. It's like Avatar.
Exactly. So, and yeah, there's all these links to other realms that people talk about. Bifrost, this pyramid in Bosnia that has runes on it that say that mention stargates and star forts, and all these pictures of portals and tech. The druids having these stone circles that lead to that have potential gateways to other realms, especially during periods in time of the year. And these rainbow circles that if people throw a dreaming body through, and they can have biofeedback like muscle testing to read what's going on with that dreaming body and see if it bleeds into their experience, they might be able to experience another realm and start chest moving with that. I also read another thing to build upon your theory is when I read into the history of certain land masses and mounds and stuff, all these land masses, continents have technology. I see them as ships in a way that it's not just a ship. It's like a cluster of a large amount of technology, like Organite, but with different intentions as an incarnating spirit, as a collective. Sometimes they're not doing too well. Sometimes they're in a coma. Sometimes they're trying to awaken the people above them. That links to meridians on them, like places of power and ley lines, supplying the consciousness to grow and evolve, dolmens that increase people's evolutionary consciousness, natural pyramids, little mountains. And when I track back, like what's the history of the consciousness, when I look into their timeline, a lot of the consciousness doesn't, at least this is what I read, so it's like whatever, take it with a grain of salt, people. A lot of these consciousnesses don't start in this realm. Like a lot of them seem to be hires by Earth for something they're really good at. It's Earth is like, I need somebody to hold space for all these people and be good at like psychic energy, or be good at magic, or be good at healing or something. And they will have, like, especially if they're big enough, they'll have lots of things they're good at, but one particular thing that they're best at, and it is better than any other land mass at that tech. And I'll see the history of how they made that, and they'll usually have already formed it in another realm, whether you want to call it a planet with multiple realms or whatever. It's the state, the body consciousness that holds a bunch of realms, whatever a being wants to call that. And I read a lot of land masses like the US, Japan, etc., have formed themselves in another realm, and they got really good at it, and they decided to replicate that landmass somewhere else, and they'll bilocate into another realm and be hired to do that job. And so a lot of them exist, like sometimes a person's like, if you imagine somebody's going around a misty mountain and they're like, that tree wasn't there, and like things start weirdly shifting around. And if everything's right in the energetic, sometimes these realms that have this common mountain that's bilocated in multiple realms can have things bleeding over all at once and interacting with each other in some way, not always, you know, just physically seeing a being, but sometimes that will happen. There's some tech with that, but
well, it reminds me of Jesus saying, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. You know, it's like, what was he saying? You know, like, what kind of faith does a mustard seed have to have? It's this tiny thing and it grows into, you know, a bunch of growth, but it has to have that faith to do it. And then if it has that faith, it can move mountains. Are you telling me that I could dodge bullets? I'm saying that when you're ready, you won't have to quote Morpheus in the Matrix. Anyway, yeah, I love that.
Exactly. Yeah, we just gotta all eat a lot of mustard and have faith in that mustard.
Yeah.
But like I love that phrase, and that's like, oh, you can, that's the technology to walk on water and interact with the reality and become lucid. In this lucid dreaming, in this dream realm that has a bunch of rules, and be able to take off those rules and be unlimited, which I believe is a pathway that everyone should work towards if they can. I'd say that goes into accumulation of the energy of faith and getting it compressed to be bigger than an atom, and then molecules up to the grain of a mustard seed, which barely anyone has even a little bit. And it acts like a musical chair thing with a lot of these energies and emotions. If you don't have a lot of faith, for instance, then you probably have a lot of doubt. Then if you're good at transmuting that and then turning into faith and protecting that faith and letting it grow bigger and bigger and bigger and compressing it, and it becomes like this ball of energy that supports you in your placebo engine of technology to believe yourself things true, because people can do that, and especially if it's strong enough. But I would still tell people to get biofeedback and improve upon this tech, and not just believe whatever you think is true, because it can be disrupted. It's like a ladder or something to get to the fruit of knowledge. It can be disrupted and broken apart, and then you just rebuild it back stronger and get rid of dogmas.
Yeah, I like that. And it reminds me what the Tao says. It says, whether you move up the ladder or down it, your position is shaky. Stand with your 2 feet firm on the ground, which you could still climb the ladder of truth and knowledge. But if your feet are planted on the ground, like metaphorically, then like you said, you get the feedback, and you're not going to go spiraling off into, you know, going insane or just becoming like this person who's like all like egocentric, like, oh, this is all me or whatever. Yeah. It's a very thin line.
Yeah, insanity. Yeah, I feel a lot of the safety mechanisms from going into egoism is realize you are everything, and not want to harm those cells of your body, because it will ultimately hurt yourself. And then if they do well, it's like turning on little suns inside your universe, and then having that reflected, because the dark really wants to get rid of that reminder of anything that had to do with that, so that a person can be in like airport consciousness mode. Oh, these dirty humans, oh, these NPCs, and then yeah, so that like people aren't like, they're all egoic and centralized or overwhelmed with pain, because it's understandable that you got to pay attention to yourself when you're overflowing with pain and fear and suffering and all that.
Yeah. What I suggest for people to do is, a lot of these people call sheep or NPCs. I don't like to say always NPC. Like, I like to use it as a way to describe behavior, but as a label for a person, I think it gets dangerous, because then it's the next step is, oh, we can kill these people, they're just NPCs. You know, like, I see that one coming. I'm like, not today, Satan, or whatever. You know, it's like, I know these tricks, but it is a great way to describe behavior, because people I feel that are engaging in certain behaviors are on a vibration because of that. And then they display NPC behavior. And what I tell people is what's worked for me, and everyone has their own method, but I try to see these people as just children, no matter how old they are, because mentally it's kind of like they're children. And you wouldn't get mad at a child if he was like yelling at you because he wanted his dessert before he ate dinner. You would just be like, nah. I mean, maybe you get mad. I don't have kids, I guess, so I can't really speak to this as much, but in my reference, this is why I use it. Like if I'm at my niece or with somebody's kids or something, I don't let them get to me. I don't let, I realize when they're trying to mess with me. So in the same way, I just look at it, adults that display this behavior, I try to look at it that way. And that's the way that I kind of protect my energy. And then I try to be the adult in the room. And really what that involves is just making fun of most things and making people laugh. And just, like the other day I was at a wedding. It was like 220 people. I was DJing this wedding. And so I walked over after they had everybody sit down after cocktail hour. And the bridal party comes up and I have to line them up to introduce them all, and say their names on the mic. And then the parents are there. And that could be a stressful time for, well, not only the bridal party and the people getting married, but also the DJ. But since I've done stand-up comedy for so long, like I don't really get embarrassed. Even if I make a mistake, I'll just make fun of myself. And I'm like, whatever, And I'm in a position where like, I don't know, people really like me. So they're just, even like my boss, someone who, the company I work for, everybody pretty much loves me because I'm just an awesome guy. Like I do things for people, you get it. And so even if I make a mistake, people are just like, whatever, as long as I own up to it, So anyway, I'm lining these people up, and the mother of the bride, I think it was, comes over, and she's like all frizzled, and they were trying to get the bride's dress bustled, and it was taking longer, and everyone's rushing. And she walks right over to me, and I'm the tallest one there because you can't tell in video, but I'm 6'5". I mean, we met, so I'm 6'5", and I look like this, and I got like a black shirt on and so she's like, wow, you're really chill. And I looked at her, I go, I'm the chillest one here. And she's like, yeah. And I go, and I'm the DJ, so that's what matters. She's like, oh, thank God. And then just everything changed, like the whole energy. It was great. I kind of transmuted that just with a little humor, so in that same way, that's the kind of energy I try to bring into situations, and it's worked really well so far. I think that most people, they want at the end of the day to be happy, so they'll see it and they kind of just are like, yeah, well, he's happy, let's be happy. So that's kind of what I try to do. I don't try to argue or change people's minds anymore or anything like that. It's kind of silly, like why bother? They got to just do it, but I like what you said.
I agree. Now, do you do like emotional magic with your DJ work, where you just like raise the crowd's vibe like intensely so it's explosive?
Yeah, it's funny because I was taught that way, because I was taught by a really good guy. He's like a master craftsman at this wedding DJ stuff. He's the one who owns the company too, and he taught me about the energy. And this is before I was like into the spiritual stuff, but he taught me about the energy of music and how you use these songs and the BPMs, and you build it up and then you drop it, and then you build it up and you do this and you do all these crazy things. And you're really playing with people's energies. And that's where I have the most success, because by doing it so long, and then I know a lot of the songs that work, and sometimes it's a challenge. That's what I love about it. It's always a challenge. You're like, well, sometimes when stuff's going to work, and sometimes you're like, I hope this works. You play a song, you're like, and then people start going nuts. You're like, oh, thank God. It's like, this could have got bad, but yeah, it's funny. But yeah, it's definitely the energy thing.
Cool. I'd love to learn more about that sometime, and we can have a chat and exchange tech.
Yeah.
What
Dude,
are
anytime.
more about you said shadow work and victim consciousness energy?
Yeah, so I'm writing a book about this now, and some people in the chat have read chapters. I like to get feedback on this book more than my first book that I wrote, because I'm trying to make this one very easily digestible. So I'm sending it out to people to let me know, like, if I'm missing something, or like, because I'm trying to dumb all this stuff down, basically, not to be, condescending, but trying to put all this stuff like victim consciousness and what it really means, and what you can do about it in your everyday. I'm just trying to put it into a small book, and I want to make it an audiobook too, because I love audiobooks myself. I used to read a lot more when I was younger, but now just the audiobooks I love it. So anyway, I want to put what I've learned and just distill it down, because it took me a lot of walking in the wilderness, to gain all this knowledge. So I think that I could just kind of distill some of it down as shortcuts to people. And I always say, like in the book, and every time I talk to people, like, it's your own path. This is just what I've done, and this is what I've learned. Use it as you can, And the biggest point I try to tell people is, and it really just started as a blog post I was going to write about victim consciousness. And the question I posed is, in the beginning of the book, spoiler alert, is I go, victim consciousness, is this the root of all evil? And I mean, it could be, it couldn't be, but that's definitely a good opening question, that's what I'm going to talk about. And I talk about how you could shift your perspective on the world, and anytime you could try to not be a victim, unless you're physically being assaulted, then I guess you could say you're a victim. But I got in a car accident the other day. It was so funny. This guy went across, I was basically on a road that was going straight. I had no stop sign, and I was taking a left, and there was a guy leaving that street taking a right, and he just kind of breezed through the stop sign, and I was close. So he went over the stop sign, and I tried to move, and he hit me anyway. So anyway, he stops, then he takes off, and the cops come and they catch him. And so the cops talking to me, he's like, all right, well, you're the victim in this situation. And I was like, I wanted to say something, but I just kept my mouth shut. I'm like, I'm not a victim. Like,
give me money.
And that's what I said. Like, I called his insurance company. I'm like, listen, I'm fine. I wasn't hurt. I'm not one of these people who's I just want either, fix my car or just give me money for it and we'd be cool. So like, they all love me over there too. I've been talking to them. And I don't think that's what I like to do when I'm on the phone with any kind of customer service. It's like, I know a lot of times or tech help, like they just get treated like idiots. So I always try to lighten up their day, but yeah, that's, I heard him say victim and I'm like, no. So, most people though, they'd be like, yeah, I'm a victim here. Like, oh man, you ruined my day. Cause they made me late or that whole situation made me late to this wedding, but I was late in a degree where I give myself at least a half hour, 45 minutes of like leeway. So I wasn't really late. I just missed the mark of when I wanted to get there, but we still got set up and everything started on time. But I could have just spiraled about it, And it's funny because I told people about it and they just wanted to make me a victim, They're just like, oh man, are you okay? Just like, oh, that sucks. That's the worst. And I was like, it sucks more for that guy, especially because he ran and they caught him, like it wasn't that bad for me. It was inconveniencing, but way worse things happen. But it's funny how it's so easy to play into this victim mindset in society, and people want to do it and they want to give you this pity. And I'm just like, don't freaking pity me, lady. I'm towering over you and I love my job. I'm just like, but yeah, since I have that point of view on the world, I always haven't had that point of view. And since I've shifted more to that point of view, it's helped me tremendously. So I wanted to share all that with people. So I talk about that. I talk about a lot of the solution to that is cultivating your intuition, getting in contact with that feeling inside, because I feel like it communicates differently. People call it like the ego or the, that voice that you have in your head. It comes more like words and a voice, right? But this feeling that we have is different. I think it's more like what telepathy is. I think telepathy is like a feeling you share with another person, maybe because they're just vibrating on the same vibration or however words you want to put to it. But I think that internally, that's like the voice of God or whatever you want to call it. Like Christians can call it the voice of God. Buddhists can say that's Buddhist. The Hindus could say it's Krishna, Sri Krishna, whatever it is. It's that voice that's telling us, that's guiding us. And as you can cultivate it, and it comes in a lot of ways, like you said, like working out's a good one. I didn't put that in there, but I should. But I put like art, writing, singing, anything that gets you in a flow state. You're really connecting. Meditation is a big one, but then I talked about like the negative pitfalls of meditation if you're doing it too long. I really busted apart the new age in the beginning because a lot of the terms that I say sound new agey. And I shit on the secret book. Basically, I'm like, here's the secret to the secret, what they don't tell you. So it's all stuff like that. I try to put it in mainstream so people can understand it a little more, because it's more for like a, not exactly a normie, but somebody that's coming new into this from like an if they're like agnostic too, it's like meant for that, but I mean, I think it could be a help for everybody, obviously, but it's tailored to that kind of mindset. Oh, and shout out to Robo Honky, still my favorite handle on YouTube. What's going on, buddy? He said earlier, he said something really cool, but he said, let's see, we were having a great discussion, so I didn't want to interrupt it, but he said something very kind. Wow, our chat's been going crazy since then. And he said something about like, this is super fascinating. He said that earlier when we were talking about realms and planets and all this crazy. Yeah. So big shout out to the chat though. Yeah, we got like 20 people I saw earlier. You said it's raining now?
Is it raining where you are?
Oh, I can't tell. It was raining earlier. Actually, it poured earlier, pretty heavy.
Well, that's a good sign. Maybe Thor's on our side.
Yeah. And then the sun came out like dramatically. So I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, that happened to me one time when I was questioning like who I am and stuff. Like and then it started downpouring like crazy, like hard, like, and then thundering. I'm like, what? And then it all stops, and then this rainbow comes out. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like crying.
Yeah, dude, I've seen this so many times at weddings because I'm at so many, because we do a lot of ceremonies too. We'll provide the sound. So I've seen so many days where it's been cloudy, like super overcast, and during the ceremony, as they're saying their vows, the sun peeks through, maybe not fully, but it starts to come through. I've also seen one time because I was everybody's like down on the ground, and I was up in this like gazebo, and I could see farther. And in the background, behind the bride and the groom, there's like a barn or something back there, maybe about 50 feet. And there's a rabbit that ran into my view, but no one else could see it because there was like hedges behind the bride and groom, but I could see over them. And this rabbit just started playing in the dust and like rolling over like a cat and just playing around. And I was just like, dude, I've seen like hawks fly over, and a bunch of like, I was at a one wedding ceremony, and it was off away from the place near this river, near the Connecticut River. Actually, the place is called St. Clement's Castle, which has so much symbolism. We could probably do an episode about that place. But anyway, so we were right away from the building near the river, and the way they have it is it's like set up in the grass, and I have off to the side, there's like this little wooden deck, and there's bushes on each side. And so a member of their staff was there to tell me when to change the songs, for the bride and the groom, or for like the bridal party, and people come out. And she comes over and she's like, dude, there's a giant black snake right there. And I'm like, what? I didn't see it, but I can hear it like take off. And it was crazy. I'm like, yeah, I always see these, the realm or whatever it is, or consciousness of people affecting what's going on around them. And it's cool that you brought up the weather like that, because I've heard stories, or sometimes it'll start raining a little bit, during a ceremony if it's sunny out. It's really crazy, because I think it just has to do with all those people that are there just experiencing love, because they love the people who are getting married. And it doesn't always happen at every wedding. But whatever. But at those weddings where I could tell the people are just like, super connected, and the family's a really good family, and their friends are really cool. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. Marriages are like a big energetic shift, and local events will reflect that and give you kind of like a tarot reading in the unseen of reflected symbolism to give you a painted picture of what may come about in the future. My mom had a wedding, and it started raining, and they're like, oh no, and then rainbow came out. I was like, oh, that kind of makes it good. Yeah, things will show up, especially with the love. I agree with you. It's like if you were to, I also see the operating system of the local hologram and light splitting infinitely, and physical matter is frozen light of like in every direction away from you. Like every singularity point has like a ray of consciousness that can interact with a person, and it can be in unity or disunity with the person, or neutral. And I like to tell people to like get the local hologram in unity with you and get it to like you, and form a trade relationship and support it, and it'll become like a ship technology, like landmass. That's what I mean by that, where it can amplify everything you got going on. and help manifest for you and support you in your career and going, into your power. Yeah, it's raining here.
Oh yeah, Caribe Root, who is one town over from you in a town that starts with a B, allegedly. She said it's thundering and lightning there where she's at.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Oh, good timing.
So I haven't seen any lightning. I'm in the basement, so but yeah, I haven't. We're manifesting the storm. Maybe everyone in the chat, and Zerlat's in Connecticut too. So
Sweet.
um,
Yeah.
7-Eleven Lucas, I believe he's in Long Island. He said it's raining there too. So we're all in this. A few of us are in this same area. It's great to connect on this side of the realm.
Yeah, I'm reading with the storm. A lot of Thor energy going on, and like this mountain area in Connecticut is also amplifying it, and like some bodies of water with where the rain came from. There's like a party going on in the clouds in manifestation, so people can project part of their consciousness there and learn from it, and learn to interact with the storm spirits to learn how to create or make rain show up or go away, etc. And each rain storm has a purpose. You can like interview what it's best at. Right now I'm reading it's like charge, and what else? It amplifies psychic energy and charge density. So there's like different things like I've seen purification ones that help dreams, all this kind of stuff. So if people get a little bit of rain when they dance out, that'll be good after the show, of course. Yeah. And so what do you know about shadow work too? Because I love shadow work. Not enough people know about it, and they get off put up because like, oh, shadows is bad. No, not at all.
I think you get that, and then you also get the new age kind of like glamorizes it, and people are like, I'm having a dark night of the soul, and I'm like, no, the fuck you're not. I'm like, oh, this is a dark night of the soul. I'm like, no, because you wouldn't be talking about it on Facebook if it was a real dark night of the soul, because you'd be like, should I even be on Facebook? What the hell, so I feel what happens is anytime you have a major shift in your worldview, you have like a rock bottom moment. For example, for a friend of mine who's a heroin addict, he passed out in his truck in like a really not good, in Waterbury, Connecticut, which is probably not a good idea. And he was he was like in the middle of a parking lot or a road or something, and some guy pulled over and helped him get to like a commuter parking lot. Oh, he was, like in a gas station or something. And he had all this H out on the seat. So if the cop showed up, he was screwed, and he has a wife and 2 kids, right? So this guy helped him into the commuter lot. He slept it off. And then after that, he's like, I don't want my kids to grow up without a dad. He like saw the direct consequences of his actions, right? And he was face to face with it, and he could no longer do it. So he still kind of did heroin a little bit, but he got himself into rehab, and this time it stuck. For me, it was women, I guess you could say, my proclivities with the opposite sex, and I had to have a shift in the way that I saw how all that worked. And when I did, I was put into this state. And then I also started looking at myself at the same time, and I realized I was an introvert. I always thought I was an extrovert, but now that I see that I'm an introvert, it makes much more sense, because the way I've like to explain it, or the way I understand it, is that introverts could still extrovert. They're just expending energy when they do it, and then they recharge when they're in the introvert mode, which is like them or with one other person. You could it's like two's company, three's a crowd, right? And so when I found that out, I just became a hermit. And so I had my own place. I was shut up for a while. I would just like DJ on the weekends, and I would hang out with friends here and there, but it was mostly just trying to figure out my new behavior in the world, and like what I was going to do, and looking into myself, looking into like, again, personality types like astrology, looking at the tarot, breaking that down, symbolism, and then but in the lens of like, how can I know more about myself using these tools, not how can I like manifest or whatever. It was like, no, how can I learn more about myself and become a better person, basically, right? So even though I was perfect, and we're all perfect, but how can I become the hero. Like when I was listening to you talk with Zeralath, shout out to Zeralath, he's in the chat. I was listening to the radio show you did with him, and you guys were talking about a video game and how that kind of sparked Zeralath. Looking back to that, it was about werewolves and stuff, and like you're here to like alchemize yourself and make yourself better, and a warrior to combat the evil that's here, right? So it was all that kind of stuff. And it was also a lot of like, I had to admit I was wrong. And I think for me, it wasn't, because some people go through and they're like in bed and they're crying and all this stuff. For me, I think I automatically realized it and accepted it. And it was hilarious because I fell on the ground and I was laughing, but tears were coming out of my eyes. And I was just like, I was so wrong. I was so wrong. Like, what a fucking idiot I was. But because I'm such a comedian and a goofball, I saw the humor in it. And I was like, that was so funny that I did that, because it makes sense why I would think that. But it's not the whole truth. Like, I was wrong. And I'm so used to being right all the time when people around me are wrong, that it's hard to see sometimes when I'm wrong about something really big like that. So when I realized for me that wasn't the way to be, I just accepted it. So I didn't go through what some people describe shadow work. Again, there's different paths for everybody. For me, it was one more of joy and learning and getting to know myself. And so that's really what shadow work is. It's just the work you do in the shadows to integrate your shadow. Really, that's how I would describe it. And sometimes you're not always in the shadows doing it, I guess, but it's something you can only really know that you're doing. It's harder to share with somebody else unless they're in a similar part of their experience. So like later when you meet friends that are into this, but like the people in your life, it's harder to, because they're not always open to that. They want to know about the Giants and the Jets, like they're like, come on, the game's on. Shut up. You're buzz killing my Bud Light here, And it also affected me in the way I was DJing. That's why I went more to just doing weddings, because I was at the bar and I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm just here and these people are engaging in escapism. They're just getting hammered. And again, no judgments, man. Like, this Sorrel, go and enjoy it, but it just, for me, I felt better energy at weddings, and it was more money, which helps too. And so I just gravitated toward that. Now I'll do like private parties and stuff and weddings instead. I don't even really do corporate events. I'll kind of say no to those too, because sometimes it depends on who it is. Sometimes we get some cool people, but sometimes it's like just, it's like being at the club again or whatever. And I'm like, I'm kind of over all that. I want to celebrate people with the best day of their life every time. It's great. But yeah, so I'd say shadow work to me are all those things, and it's different for everybody, but art is really cool. I drew a lot while I was doing that. I would just draw and paint. I did like watercolors. I sang a lot just for myself though, but hey, it's great. I would send some voice messages to somebody, some lucky people. But yeah, all these expressions of art. And then I also was writing and doing shows. I was doing a lot about the tarot, stuff like that. I had a podcast with my friend Ashley called the Tarot Bowl podcast that you could get at tarotbowl.com, tarotbull.com. Most of the episodes are up there. I do also have some of the later episodes here on YouTube on my channel, the Brandon Bonanza channel. So go check that out. And I also do a show called the Over Sharon Show currently with my good friend Sharon. It's another hilarious pun, Over Sharon, because that's all we do. We overshare, but we talk about a lot of these concepts. We talk about victim narrative, and we actually met through Owen Benjamin and his community. So shout out to the Bears and Owen Benjamin. They've been nothing but great to me, especially when you have a really good sense of humor and you could realize that, as long as you could take getting your balls busted, it's great. It reminds me of being back in the Marines. And it's not like when I go to meetups, it's not like people just constantly busting your balls. But what I mean is to fit into the humor, I guess, that unites the community. It's a lot of ball busting, and but it's fun. It's really good stuff. It really does. When I go to meetups, like they have an app called the Beartaria Times where people meet up, and like it's heavily censored. Like a 5-year-old should be able to scroll through it. So it's just people posting about their families and their gardens and funny memes, but they can't be about like Joe Biden or whatever, it's got to be like, it's like the 90s kind of in there. It's great. So it's just a place, like a little refuge. But anyway, people had meetups and they put them on there, and then they had a big national festival. But I've went to some of the other meetups, and when you go there, it really reminds me of when I was in the Marine Corps in the 90s, and I would go to they'd have like family picnic events, and it's just a lot of good people, and it's really cool. But you can also talk about anything, because even though a large percentage of Owen Benjamin's followers or fans or whatever you say, bears, are Christian, they're not the type of Christian to shove it down your throat. We can all agree on the common bond that we're following the golden rule, and they're open to like pagan ideas and like Muslim ideas and all these other things. They love to talk about that stuff, and gravy, which is like realm earth and like, lost history. And there's one guy I had on my show last week who lives in Buffalo. Shout out to Berserker Bear. Bushwhacking History in Buffalo is his channel. And he goes around Buffalo and he found a place where there should be a star fort, and he even found all this evidence for it and stuff. It's really crazy. So he discovered a lost star fort, and he'll just go around boots on the ground and look at all these different mounds and like waterways. And he thinks the Erie Canal is actually the Eric Canal, back to the Vikings and stuff. Yeah. It's amazing. So he has a really cool channel. Check that out. That was a really fun conversation.
What's his channel?
It's called Bushwhacking History in Buffalo. And he's such a real dude. Like, he just reminds me of somebody I grew up with, like he's a berserker here, berserker bear here. We got boots on the ground, and he'll like show a video when he steps out, he shows his boots hitting the ground, it's like, yeah, dude, we're here. And you really feel like you're there with him investigating. It's really cool. So yeah, check that out. But yeah, it's a cool community. So shout out to all those guys. Shout out to everybody in the chat and everybody in the oversharing group. We have a fun little group on Telegram. And this is the thing about my chat right now. There's like 25 people, 20 people in there, and no one's spiraling. We have like a 0 spiraling policy, and we have a bunch of wrenches in there that are like cocked and loaded. And it's great. I got it. Shout out to Prometheus Peanut. He's been, Berserker Bear is a living legend. Prometheus Peanut came across my channel recently, and he's a big fan now. So I'm excited because I think I've seen him around. Prometheus, I've seen you around, haven't I? In the True channel, the J guy, JT.
Beautiful. Someone said it was raining like hell. Yeah, it's doing that here. Yeah, get soaked in that psychic density. Thor seems to be sending you some messages. He said, so Thunder Talkers, it's like a Native American thing. Like each conversation can be had between the thunder, and everyone that can hear it in the range, there's usually a message that is relayed. Either it's an upgrade, it can be like very low level, but like usually it will have messages for like top tier consciousness and people that can actually tune into it, especially. So there's like messages for the show for us. That would be referring, talk about the realm game. Okay, I'll talk about that. And then some things like at some points trying to like say, no, don't talk about this. And I like to track back, like, what are you not wanting me to talk about? Hi, Magick. Okay, so I'll talk about that too, because screw them.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you like more stuff on Tolkien stuff and like what you've been like experiencing and going in that, and we can go down the rabbit hole of how Tolkien, I remember reading a quote where he said some of the stuff that he put into Lord of the Rings is based on, give or take, 1,000,000-year-old English history, or whatever, because like that number is like, what do you mean humans have been around for millions of years? And it's like that goes into forbidden archaeology and all the different hominids and Homo capensis, elves, Homo florensis, hobbits, and a lot of other Gigantopithecus and other things that people don't talk about, and the different concepts of his disclosing old history and translated 14 languages, made up some languages, and supposedly, and based stuff he found off of the Oxford dictionary. Dictionary, Oxford libraries. What did you, if you want to share anything about Tolkien?
Are you kidding me? I'm excited. I feel like somebody just lobbed a softball at me. Thank you for that question. It's an amazing question, but before I get to it, I just have to read what Paraplegic tells. Paraplegic Bear, if you can imagine, if you don't know, he got shot. Well, we probably don't know this, but anyway, the bears know. It's like he's like a famous bear, but he got shot like in the 90s in his back in Baltimore. And so now he's in a wheelchair, but he sells coffee to like a lot of the bears, and he's like a big ball buster. So he goes, the only running I could still take part in, running my mouth about Brandon and his gay little Magic cards. Oh my God, I love it. That's what I'm saying about the ball busting, like I could be like, how dare you? But yeah, no, they're gay Magic cards. Trust me, that's exactly what I used to think. Like I used to be in that frame of reference where this is just all bullshit, but it could still be like on that level it is. And then on some levels, people are using it to control people so they can have an audience support or I was going to say audience. Sorry, guys, not you. You're not our slaves. I always call the
Yeah, we're
overshare.
not.
I
No shame.
always call the oversharing fans slaves. I'm like, they're our slaves, so it's like an open joke. But some of these readers and psychics, maybe they don't realize they're doing it, but they keep people dependent on them, so then they could kind of make a living, So but also you can use it to help yourself. But yeah, I love the ball busting. But back to your question, it's funny because earlier when you were talking about the realm, I thought of something that I forgot, and what it was about Tolkien, because I think that Tolkien's description of the creation and what was here before is way more closer to the story that we get. And I love the question you asked about giants and all the stuff, because I don't know if you've come across Jason Brashears of Archaics, but he's a simulation guy, but that doesn't bother me. I get it. But what he talks about, he says that all that time, like in the book specifically, he talks about Forbidden Archaeology by Michael Cremo, and he talks about how they space it all in Zachariah Sitchin, but they get it wrong with the Shar. Shar is only a day, not a year, so it didn't happen as long ago as we think. And he talks about the vapor canopy and how humans grow larger, the babies, and like everything grows because it's like a barrel, it's like a some kind of chamber, I forget what it's called, but like a biodome, right? So I think that stuff all was around and it happened. And I think however Tolkien got it, because the libraries of Oxford, I mean, Oxford's been a school for what, 1,000 years. I mean, come on, people, you think there's not some books in there that, so there's stuff in there that tells you about all this, but maybe it's just either it was explained to him in a way that it was that long ago, or it was just a misconception, or who knows, or maybe that's just how he could make it acceptable to the public, was to say it was so many years ago. But anyway, I think that those times come and go in this realm. Like, think of the deserts during the vapor canopy. The desert is the best place on earth to be because it's not a desert, it's a lush living thing. But now we're in the dark age of Kali Yuga, the deserts are dead, So I think it's a whole new magical realm. And I also think we could see the sky in a way different way, because the way Jason explains it is the vapor canopy time is basically when all the water's in the mesosphere. It never rains. There's just a really thick fog or heavy dew in the morning that just keeps everything going. And during the day, you don't see the sun. There's just like a purple light. And at night, though, all the water acts like a telescope and you could see shit. So I think you could see the constellations. Like you could see there's like a show going on up there that we're like, whoa. And because of that, it affects our belief in a way where we live more like the golden age, right? And these matriarchies that are running crazy are actually a positive thing. Like, and like what you said with the past traumas, I think those traumas happen one way or another because of the ending of that vapor canopy, and we're still dealing with it. Like Michael Tessarion's work, he talks a lot about a past trauma that happens. He thinks it was a comet that hit our planet, but whatever it is, his thesis is like dead on, that I think we all are. And there's people that realize this and they pass this knowledge down, and they're the masters, right, on the good side or the bad. And then people like us who were moved around like freaking plants, like, like my mom was adopted, and then on the other side, my grandmother was adopted. So like I have really no idea of where I came from exactly. I could just say it was probably a magical realm called Middle Earth, but that's just a legend.
I love that concept. It's like your DNA is a Schrodinger's cat box.
Yeah,
and you have the ability to influence it.
Yeah, but we get all these different aspects of all different cultures and stuff that we've came before. So it's like a superpower if we use it right, or it just could be used as like the worst trap ever, for victim consciousness, like I said before. But the Tolkien thing, so back to that, I really believe that he was onto something with that, because if you think about when he creates this realm, there's a void that Iluvatar God is in, and he comes out and he takes these Ainur with him, who are like the demigods, and they're the ones that sing this realm into existence, right? There's a huge truth bomb in my opinion right there, because everything's vibration, right? So they're singing it and they don't see it yet, and then later they first have dreams about it and what it's going to be, and then after that they get to create it. So they try to create based on their dreams, and they're the ones that, and basically in that creation they're also bringing into manifestation what they sang. So it's like all these levels of things, right? You're talking about spiritual, physical, vibration. And then there's one of them that's the greatest, right? And what does he do? He thinks he could be the best, and he takes a fall. He wants to take all the power, and he's like a Lucifer character or whatever, like a Loki or something like that. And he goes off and he becomes the resistance in this realm, right? And he sows all this discord and he gets everybody to fight. And it's basically the story of the Silmarillion is like the elves are perfect, and then they split, and then they have to come back together. And that's why when you get them in Lord of the Rings, they're different, whole different thing, because they're working their shit out. They worked it out. They're leaving this realm. They're going to the next realm. Like you said, different realms, heaven and hell. You know, Tolkien has that in there too, right? He's got the pits of Angband, you know, and where people can escape from, and then they're like corrupted and you can't trust them. I mean, it's just so much that's in there, just blows my mind. And I'm thinking to myself that this was definitely some kind of channeled work, and it was channeled and it came out based on all the history study that he did. So he based it on this like medieval-ish kind of realm of nature, because that's what he was into. But I think that it's a really good channel. It's just people look at it as fiction, which is fine with me, because then they can't demonize it, right? Because it's, you know, it's just a guy writing about fantasy. And shout out to Woodshop Bear, by the way. He's writing a fantasy book. I had him on, and he banged out a book in like, I don't know, a few weeks. He has already 3 like written. He's just, his whole life he's had this idea to write it, and because of several circumstances that are going well, he has the time and he's just putting it out, and it's going really well. So shout out to him, and he's heavily influenced by Tolkien as well. So we had a great conversation. But yeah, so that's about what I would say with that. And I think that we're just in another age of Tolkien. If I had to put it, like if I had to take my best guess and I was just like somewhere and like, what do you think? I'd be like, all right, so you know how there was a Silmarillion in the ages? I go, I think it just came up to us. And we're just, there's just a lot of in between we don't get. We get Lord of the Rings and all stuff before it, but there's a story that links us, I think, to something that like Lord of the Rings had happened. You know, maybe it wasn't a ring being destroyed, but could have been. So
Yeah, I would, based on what he said, I wouldn't say that it's accurate with like everything. You know, a lot of it's metaphors and
well,
stuff.
I
But
think
he's
there's a
taking
lot
books.
missing. There's like a lot that what you said also fits in
Yeah,
that we don't get about certain realms and stuff. But I think that of the physical plane, Middle Earth, I think, is kind of like the allegory for Earth, you know, and
yeah,
then the other realms, yeah. And I
yeah,
think,
Midgard.
yeah, and what happened there in those stories is kind of like maybe echoes of what really happened or happens to this day. Just gets played out with, you know, jets and iPhones. So yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. I wouldn't like put any movie as like historical fact. Sometimes you may say like, oh, they were channeled or like inspiration from an entity, or they have our looking glass technology or something like that. Sometimes, but a lot of times, creative mind and they're like pulling things out of the ether. They had dreams about it and they want to put that in. A lot of good like ways people do this, but yeah, and Tolkien had access to books that were disintegrating. Like so, he's like the last person to look at some of these things before they got destroyed. And like this
That's
the stuff
crazy.
that not many people can translate, and he did, and with things with Ogham and Gaelic, and like going back to the Tuatha de danann, and with the children of Danann, with the Elvish lineages and the fair people, the elves, the gentry, they're called, or the like fairies, fair haired, fair skinned, um advanced technology beings, inner earth bubbles of reality, cities under the ocean, realm gates, and then them talking about in their history having a fertility problem with other realms and not being able to, some having to come here to have children. Avalon, Alphine, all this stuff, which like going into is what some of the abilities I teach, being able to combine remote viewing, experiencing, visitation, astral travel with realm jumping, which is the thing Thor wanted me to talk about. So
it's funny you say realm jumping because shout out to Grounded Extracts. He talks about iboga. Have you ever heard of ibogaine? He talks about iboga experience he had when he was getting off of his addiction, and he was basically transported to the 1930s for like weeks.
That's awesome.
He like lived a whole life there in a matter of a couple days. And so when you say different realms, I'm totally on board. I'm just trying to figure out like if it could be all here. He just went to a different time. Here, we can't perceive because of our limited physical beings that we're doing, but he could have been right next to me having that experience. His energy was just in that different time that I can't perceive right now, my limited, so trust me, everything you're saying is lining up with, it's great. And I'm also, I'd like to thank you for entertaining my idea and speaking to me. And actually it seems that even earlier you were being very, I don't want to say try because there's no try. I know you were being very cool with it. Like you were putting stuff, like you would say planets, but then you'd say what else? You know what I'm saying? Because we all get that we don't know, right?
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, it's just words.
So we're not gonna
like separated by different words of meaning and how we describe things. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about this on the Oversharing show. Another shout out to that show about division, episode 11 and 1111, like months ago. And we were saying all these lines of division in society, like sports teams. That's why I always bring that up, or like school. What school did you go to? Or the Marine Corps, and I was in the Navy. Or you're a Christian and I'm a different flavor of Christian, and let's just argue about it. Like all these different things. Yeah. Exactly. So thank you for not indulging in that. It's very refreshing. I mean, most everybody I have on here so far has been pretty cool. I would definitely talk to somebody that was more debatey if they wanted to, because I'm a good poker player. So like I like that debate, like you were saying, a friendly debate. I would totally
feel like doing that sometime. We can too, but no pressure.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. How dare you?
We probably agreeing a lot more than
exactly. We'd have to argue about the Jets and the Giants. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
That'd be funny. We'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Of all the topics we go for the most. All the distractions and polarities the elites use to distract everyone and get them caught up in division. Exactly. Yeah,
which I feel like great for them. But if you want to watch this show and absorb my work, and I'm sure Sean's work, let that stuff go. And that's what I like about, like I said, the bear community and in our group. And like shout out to, he's not in here right now, but the Melodome, Austin, I've had him on the show, and Grounded Extracts is on that show too. Their audience has been awesome. A lot of people in the chat are from us being on that show. And then they saw how awesome I am and beautiful, and they were allured. I'm like an elf lord of old, except I got facial hair. So then I say I'm more like Gandalf. But anyway, I digress. But you were saying,
you get the hat and everything. You'd be great. And people, like, I also tune into people and their DNA lineages and like, oh, what kind of stuff you got going on? You got a lot of magic DNA lineages that you have. Some that were introduced to you at birth. So there's some beings that have invested interest in you, so specifically, instead of just your DNA lineage, and that introduced you. So definitely go into that. And I track back, whatever you want to call the realms of where these origin of these species come from, like the elves and the gentry and Nordic and Celtic DNA that goes into a lot of that. I read a lot of them immigrated here into this realm and other realms of this planet cluster, whatever you want to call it, from the realm cluster of Sirius A. A lot of things in the Celtic mythos, Japanese mythos, Hindu mythos and some Syrian, Middle East, or Anunnaki is more Syrian B. You know, a lot in that cluster. It's like they adopt a lot of species to their world. So they were a garden world similar to Earth, and now things hunted those species down and caused catastrophes there, and now Earth is in refugee and adopting them and putting them in a bunch of her realms. So she's a nice mother in that regard. So I see some of the lineages that came here and added their genetics to humanity, and that's what I track back. Some of the elven lineages that add their DNA to us, as well as this species that I call wizard DNA, or extra-dimensional wizard DNA, or witch DNA. A lot of those I track back to Syria, and they're similar to Gandalf. They're like
You have my interest now.
like an
Alrin,
angelic
right?
and human body. They're overpowered with magic. They have like a whole mystery school of advanced high magic passed down to them. A lot of them have portal tech and dimensional tech, and then can make this pocket dimension of space that links to multiple woods. And it's like Baba Yaga, but in a good way. With a cabin in their woods that they can pick up and have traveling. I've seen multiple. It's the purpose to not be tracked or disturbed and be safe, so they can just like extend their life and then doing a guardianship without having to worry about their own fortress.
Yeah,
Some of those
dude,
will
I love
connect to
that.
people's DNA lineage, and they'll contact them in dreams. Sometimes you have a wizard lineage, and others that have this calling will have similar. So they can contact that. Yeah, and like yours, I'll like interview it a little bit. A lot of it's secret stuff, so it's stuff that you want to find out without a public. So I'll have conversations with you if we hang out sometime about it. Just bring it up with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, like dragons, I also tune into like as this elemental hierarchical order of consciousness that doesn't need a body, but sometimes does have had it. And then there was extinction events. A lot of them exist multidimensionally and manage realms. A lot of the realms that I've like interviewed it have a big ass dragon as a guardian that prevents beings that shouldn't be entering. Then we'll capture them. They're like, if you can imagine like big celestial dragons the size of planets and beyond, and like going up there. And some I've seen interact with angels. They're just another whole flavor of a type of residual image. They're all elements combined together in one body. They come from every planet and star that you can find, but and there's many different types, and some will incarnate in human bodies. Wink. Then
How dare
I've
you?
seen some of the Celtic dragons come from Sirius A, but also a lot of the Chinese and Japanese lungs come from Sirius A. Some of the more resilient westernized, like four limb or wyvern, I've seen from Sirius B, but they're older than that. And residual image, that was like the last stop before they came here, is a lot of the time I read with them. What do you think of elves, by the way?
Like when someone rings a bell?
Like elven lineages, like in Lord of the Rings.
I actually love all that stuff, what you were talking about. Bells, it's funny, because I'm not up on like a lot of the lingo of this stuff, but because I'm like new to a lot of it. But I think it's very interesting. Like, I really think it has to do with levels of consciousness and the way it evolves. So we if we're consciousness, I think we experience that. So we had a life probably as that, and then for some reason we had experienced the life of men. But when you were talking about dragons, before I forget this, I want to ask you, what do you think about Tolkien and his use of dragons?
I like that. With like smog and stuff, I'd say based on all the history I've downloaded in my mind, I don't like using timestamps for going to events. I like making events of bubbles of reality and civilizations, and then lining up and describing events. So at some
Yeah.
point, there's something I describe as the end of the mythic age, where a whole bunch of shapeshifters and beings of greater sentience in different forms started dying out or going extinct or being hunted, or a greater ET race or inner Earth race, such as like in the Mahabharata, this there's poems and these paintings and books about this event in Hindu mythos of this big war in the sky, and there's evidence to like there's nuclear blasts that went off in some deserts that made like Libyan desert glass, and where all this stuff that happened that would have brought a lot of those races into inner Earth, so that we can have this game that we have now of where we as multiple, this is what I perceive of the game, what is humanity like, why do we forget when we were born and all this and don't remember past lives. A lot of it has to do with what is the equation that's needed to bring all these species from multiple realms, galaxies, universes, multiverse, whatever you want to call them, and all these species that have been at war with each other, and the solution to figure out how to bring all the wars to peace by getting them to incarnate all under one species, as would be a super hybrid tech, and get them to eventually come to peace and unity as one species, and then cause a ripple throughout all those lineages of species to heal them and resolve them through time. So it's like a big remedy for everyone. Yeah. And dragons. What was your original
So how do
question?
you think dragons, like, so his use of dragons, how does
Right.
it fit into
Thank you.
how you understand everything? No, it's cool. I love what you said. I mean, I was resonating with it, and it put a lot of pieces into place.
Yeah, so like an end of a mythic age, which you can call there's fall of Atlantis and what people call Mir or Mu and the motherland. A lot of the end of the mythic age would be the end of those civilizations, and then all these wars to get rid of these species, and then we have the reality, oh no, we're the only sentient species, because as soon as that happens, then it's an easier way to control. There's also the dark abusing that. So dragons, I would say that they're usually more sentient in the older periods of their existence, and like guardians, and would prevent things from happening. And then towards their end of their extinction, they got more aggressive, and with good reason, because of the things killing them and stealing their tech. A lot of them turn to being aggressive and dominating, and also those are the ones that continued a range of high sentience. The last ones would be like low sentience, feral, didn't get taught by their elders, etc. And then that's what a lot of the newer stories, the now stories, would perceive them as. I do read some of them still are alive underground, especially. I've seen a video footage of one that was flying over China, and it's a lot of like, oh, is this real or not? And then I just send a telepathic text messages to certain beings when I see like cryptid footage, see if they respond. This one responded. So I'd say, yeah, there's still some that can appear on the surface. They just don't like humans almost at all. So be careful.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that, to think how they descended as their, it's kind of like what happens to people. They go feral, like a lot of people think the Native Americans, our idea of it, they're just leftovers from a more ancient or more technologically advanced, or whatever it was, more advanced civilization. So I could see the same thing happening with another race like dragons or whatever it is. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and every animal on the planet has like things they're good at, and some like big species like big blue whales will have a whole territory their higher self is protecting and purifying the oceans, and having their song like program everything and changing the generations and the dream and what affects the weather pattern. So all these different DNA technologies do different jobs. So they had like a big, like a god in a body type of thing going on. And there are even angels that would manifest in physical bodies, and mystics and all this stuff, and wizards. And they be good caretakers for this planet, and that's what I'd like to see come back with the Magick. Also to like we're, I guess unless you want to take a restroom break, we can keep going.
No, I'm good for now. Yeah.
Okay.
Just my contacts a little bit, but it's fine. I'll be fine.
You mind if I use the restroom real quick?
Oh yeah. Go ahead. I could do some commercials. Oh, I'm really good at that.
Cool.
So yeah, very interesting show so far. What's going up out on in the chat? How you guys doing? Thank you guys for sticking around and hanging out, having a really good time here with Sean. Very mind-melting conversation, if I do say so myself. So you're not going to get this quality anywhere else of mind gravy, right? I mean, we're just totally oversharing here, and we are not making any claims, just a little bit. It's fine. But again, check out my show, The Oversharing Show. We premiere every Thursday night right here on YouTube at the Brandon Bonanza channel at 8:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So come in. We have the live chat going, and we're always in there. So it's just a premiere. It's not a live, so we could be more active in the chat. I haven't been as active myself tonight, but I have been reading it, and you guys are cracking me up. So every time you see me laugh when Sean's talking about something serious, it's because of the comment that I laughed at in the chat. So I am paying attention to a lot of it. Good stuff going on in the chat. And if you want, I usually do this Brandon Bonanza show every Monday and Tuesday night. That's what's been happening anyway. And I have a show planned tomorrow, last minute, because I was going to have my good friend Pat Oates on, who's a comedian who I talk about a lot, but he had to take an emergency flight for some personal business. And so I am going to have on my good friend, the Sarcastic Warlock. Yes, you've seen him on the chat. I did a show with him last November. We talked about the Bhagavad Gita. The infamous Sarcastic Warlock will be here live with me tomorrow, allegedly, but it looks like it's good. So probably around 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. I just haven't had time to make the art or any of that stuff, but I'll have it out early tomorrow. So you guys could get that link and join us tomorrow night, because that's going to probably be another mind-melting episode, if I do say so, because every time I talk to him, it's crazy. And I've actually met him in real life as well. I went to his house in Colorado, stayed there for a couple nights with some friends and his family, and had an amazing time. Talk about some fun conversations. So I'm really excited for that. And we got some really cool stuff coming up on the Oversharing Show. We have Chance Garton. We did a podcast with him. It was amazing. It's going to premiere this Thursday night at 8:33 p.m. So if you want to watch that and hang out with us in the chat, we'll be there Thursday. Anyway, what's up, Sean?
Yeah, nice plugs. Yeah,
you can plug some stuff if you want to. I mean, feel free.
Sure.
I did put, so everyone knows, I put his links in the description code, so check them out. But go ahead, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm Sean Bond at PsionicLeague.com and PsionicLeague YouTube. PSI, like Psionic, and then League, like Justice League. And on Sean Bond at Facebook, if people want to contact me. I do sessions, help unlock people's dormant abilities, healing, release pain over distance. And yeah, we a lot of in the membership, we got a bunch of products of abilities that people can get, some like less than $20, and to help people become their true self, their greatest self.
Yeah, we should talk about an amazing experience we had when we met. Shout out to Zerlath. All three of us went swimming at a place in Connecticut. It's this little well. It's called Indian Well, and it's a waterfall and a small, deep pool you can jump in. And there was a guy there. He was like a car thief, we call him, Puerto Rican guy. Shout out to Caribe Root. She's from Puerto Rico, so we always pick on our fun Puerto Rican friends. But anyway, he was interested in some of these topics, and it was cool because he just like asked us. He's like, "Are you guys like wizards?" He didn't say that, but he basically said it like in that, like, "Are you guys like mystics or whatever it was?" And we're like, "Yeah." So we started talking about that. But it's crazy how just your energy and the way you carry yourself. Because I gave him something like a hair tie or something I had. He's like, "Oh, you got an extra hair tie?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, sure." And I had one. So like we made a connection there. He saw we were kind and cool and not like scared because Puerto Rican showed up, you know. and
Yeah.
uh and then they just kind of read our energy and it was cool. We had a really cool experience with that. So
Yeah, we were talking about a lot of things. We didn't even care what they were there, and like yeah, they were just jumping off it. Yeah, that was a cool, like nice little place. A lot of good energy there, good justice, place of power. Yeah, I love going to waterfalls. So let me know if you find any more. We can sync up and find it and activate a little place of power. I like going around grid working and opening them up and getting stones of power, etc. Magically.
have you ever been to Wadsworth Falls in Middletown or Middle? Yeah, Middle.
No, we
Oh,
should go.
yeah, we should go there because there's a hiking trail there too. And I have pictures on my Instagram, I think, what I'm standing next to him, but it's a pretty wide fall. I mean, it's nothing crazy, you know, it's probably 10 or 11 feet of water coming down, but it's probably about 30 feet wide, but it's a good rush of water. So it's a really cool spot. And then there's a smaller falls. If you hike around, it's just this rock face basically that kind of comes out like stairs and it's just water going down it. It's like, I'm like, yeah, the elves built this. I could tell. It's just been underwater for a long time, you know, or something. Who knows? Some kind of cataclysm. But yeah, it's a really
I
cool spot.
besides the giants, I do read because like when you ask Native American tribes, like when did you guys build these mounds and pyramids? A lot of them are like, we didn't build them. We came here. They were here. I do read a lot of those things. Like what the heck was North America doing during Atlantis? There's all these rock walls and things underground and buried and these cavern systems. And I do read there are some elven lineages that have connection to North America. They seem, I don't know how far they go. I'd have to like examine the other places around the map, like in Europe, to see if they touched there, but at least know that they've been here. And of course, the giants with all the mounds being everywhere and that huge cover up.
Yeah,
But,
Sleeping Giant,
yeah, exactly.
the place you can hike here in Connecticut, looks just like a giant laying down. Yeah. I actually know a really cool cave there that I have not been inside because
Hmm.
I only recently discovered it. And the friend that I was with, it was like in early spring, and we're like, do we want to go in this cave? Because you had to climb down a rope to get in there. It's not that high. I mean, I was
Oh,
like an inch away from doing it. Like if he was like, let's go, I'd have been like, all right, you know, I almost went in by myself, but I'm like, there could be an animal or whatever, or a homeless guy in here. But
take a
not that
sword and then we get some other ropes and yeah, we can totally do that.
yeah. And it like it's basically like a knotted rope down. It's probably 8 feet down. You gotta go. It's not that bad, maybe even less. So but I've heard it goes back pretty far and people there's like spray paint and stuff in there. So people definitely go in there. So yeah, we could check that out too. Good spot. It's right at
Cool.
it's like at the chin or the neck of the giant kind of. So it's a pretty cool spot right now. You're basically going into the head of the giant.
Sweet. Yeah, I read there's some stuff under there last time I went, so I'm glad you found a cave. Yeah, let me
Yeah.
know. That sounds fun. Um, yeah, and did you have anything else you wanted to say on Tolkien and stuff?
No, I think that's about it. I just think we're like I was on the fence about getting back into it. And I was like, should I listen to the audiobooks? This was last year around this time actually, and I started listening to The Hobbit and then I was hooked. And I found that there's a lot in there. So if you're somebody and you're thinking about it, it's way better than watching TV. I can
Mm,
send you a cool audiobook. And some of them are like radio shows, like they all do all different voices and sound effects and stuff. So it's kind of like a movie, but you're making the movie in your head. So
sweet, that's good meditation material. Okay, yeah. Let me know. Send me that link. To just finish like what the storm wanted me to talk about. People can you know, if they find realm gates, there are various places, and sometimes you can find them in rainbows that form a full circle or over a waterfall or something. Yeah, they can lead to other realms. Mostly energetically, is anything can travel through there. The physical realms, of course, are extremely rare. But you can send an energetic body through there and then start up a link to then put a chess piece in that realm and then start funneling it ability to empower itself to make more chess moves, to earn resources, energy, to grow, to unite, to work with the beings there, to start monitoring, giving sense data back. And then you can start mapping it out, find where the chess players are, the place of power, especially if you go to a realm that has a permeance of magic. That's one of the big things that you can bring in and connect your body tech from the magic from another realm. And there's, especially if you can find the species that can engage in telepathy and things that can actually benefit this realm here in a trade formation. If people want to interact with elves, they can attempt to find if they have a DNA connection, start trying to contact any members of the DNA connection, which a lot of them may be dead, or that in the elf legends, they talk about a realm that they don't age in and that they don't have to worry about dying in. And I agree with that with some of the really magical realms. But sometimes they can't breed there. It depends. So they have to travel elsewhere to have more numbers. If people want to trade with them, some of them I've even tracked back are in like some type of hibernation, like they have stasis pods or something. It seems like a lot of them have been wounded greatly by this big magic curse, dark versus light magic fight that went on, where a lot of them are cursed like crazy, and it affects their fertility to where they can't have as many successful births or have like stillborn or whatever. They will reward people if they find the solutions to these fertility blocks or curses, which most of them are curses. But be careful, because curses can get pretty difficult, sentient, and can cause backlash if you don't know how to disarm them with camouflage. And because sentience will sometimes be monitoring to keep the curse going, and you're like wondering why, if they're so good at magic, why do they still have these curses? Be concerned about that, but yeah, start with your own body curses and the curses that are projected on your general area and the species in general. And then when you get good at them, then you can release curses off of other species. But they'll totally trade with you Magick if you can solve the issues that they're dealing with, is what I read with ones
Nice.
I'm working with currently. So people can engage in this chess game of the realm wars or realm travel, realm jumping, and it can help them bring in a lot of support into their daily life here. There are realms for everything type of concept. There are realms that are entire main purpose is to generate tremendous amounts of a certain type of energy and then permeate that and then have people incarnating into that experience. So people can tap into those, like add dream energy if they need dream support. But of course, astral has a bunch of different realms, but the different forms of the chakras and what they need, power, emotions. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that people can draw in or funnel out in like the recyclement realms that people can, like when people ground their negative energy to earth, like where do you think she sends it? She'll send it to a recycling type of thing. So there's some cool stuff with your realm theory that people can engage with in a game structure that could integrate with mapping out these realms, playing D&D kind of concept with them to make it fun, and contacting, combining telepathy, muscle testing, or other biofeedback tech to gain the information of this. Take it with a grain of salt, and other people can try mapping out the same realms, and they might not all come to the same conclusion, but so it's good to like check your work with things that you can't get full evidence with, but at least we can attempt to do these things. And then if it shows results, then yeah, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I really believe like everybody has their own path. So that's the thing, right? So going back to what you said earlier at the beginning of this show, you were talking about belief and knowing and strengthening your belief and then protecting your belief. Well, the work that you're doing is actually strengthening my belief, right? So we're working together. So you're on one path of what you do, and then I'm on one path, but we can help each other because of that. You know, it's really amazing. It's so it goes back to like, you know, why isn't he doing what I'm doing? He should believe what I believe. It's like, no, the work that you're doing is benefiting me because it's strengthening my belief because I can see the truth that you're speaking. So in that way, you know, we're just rising up. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for this awesome show. Yeah, dude, it was really good. I think we blew some minds in the chat. And Nigel says, where's he getting this info? Well, he says it's wild, but like in a good way. Nigel's awesome. You're just gonna have to go check out his channel, Nigel. You know, I would say a lot from his intuition, probably. And you know, it's a good question, but I think
go
you
to
gotta
PsionicLeague.
figure it out for yourself. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I got to explain a lot of it there. I got my origin story and a lot of abilities. So anyone that wants to go to my YouTube and PsionicLeague, a lot of I upload videos of people representing superhuman abilities. So you can watch those. You can download the blueprints, try to reverse engineer it in yourself, and then have that go about. So a lot of that. I learned how to
people accept Wim Hof. You know, this guy climbed Mount Everest in a t-shirt and shorts. It's like, come on, there's things we could probably do. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. With the yin energy and the cold and the tumo of the inner file, or in having full control of your body's temperature, and then being able to use breath work to modulate that. Exactly. And then become a burning sun that can survive in any climate. Same thing with I'd like to see somebody well, I kind of do see fire yogis, these people that can sit in fire and not get burned. It's crazy to watch that. I have some of those uploaded. They just stay there, and they're just like chilling out in the fire, and like, what the wow. But yeah, there's some crazy stuff of people being able to survive in any climate, and people that I have a video of somebody that I think like at least 70 days they went without drinking any water or eating anything. And they were in a hospital being monitored.
Wow.
So with my ability, everyone can learn what I'm doing and what you're doing and everyone else. I believe that it's just like putting together and doing the work. I learned how to, it's like a advanced empathic opening to feel everything deeply, and then clearing my heart to where I can sense and translate through feeling to information, energy, and motion. And then I narrowed that down and got really good at processing the data and then speeding it up. Then I take people's biophotons they emit from their body that is a blueprint of who they are and everything they've been through. And then I scan into that. So that's just one of the ways I read. I also read people's soul, their DNA lineage, their Akashic record, other stuff, and everyone can learn how to do this. So it's really fun and then of course you want to look for the things that can be proved and the ways you ask questions and to go deeper, and looking for biofeedback in the client and like what they've experienced, and if like this is going to sound weird. Like things pop in your head when you're talking to guides telepathically, where they say, "Oh, mention this," and like, "This sounds weird, but you remember this teddy bear when you were a kid that like, you would have protect you everywhere?" And it's like, "What the?" And they're like, "Whoa." I don't tell anyone about that, and I keep it in my closet when people come by, and yeah, there's cool abilities people can do. So believe in yourself. We're more powerful than we're ever told, and when people go researching their stuff, they're gonna come up against the censorship wall and skeptic people that are paid to be skeptics, which like who would pay to be skeptics unless there's a belief system war? And these governments don't benefit from people being empowered and unlocking their abilities. So they want to control people and have them be useful workers that just do whatever they're told. So you're not going to find a lot of the good stuff, but you got to go dig deep. And that's why I like digging deep. It's going to be awful finding this stuff on YouTube now, but it was much easier before. And all you got to do is find one. Of course, people make this shit up and they fake shit, but you know, I got a lot of videos that aren't fake. So, you know, all you need is one, and then you can bust through that barrier of limitation.
Yeah, exactly. Limiting belief system. Exactly. Well, I love what you said. Not much I could really add there. But I will say that you can find me at morelawsmoreproblems.com. That's my website, everybody. Had that website for almost 10 years now. I started in 2013, early 2013. And I've been writing a blog, and then it turned into like blog and memes and pictures, and my videos are up there too that I do right here. And I've got videos going back a couple of years. So check it out, everybody. It's good stuff. And we do, Sarcastic Warlock's in the chat. Man, I'm sad I missed it now. Oldest just went to bed, busy little guy. That's right. We're going to be talking tomorrow, Sarcastic. I'm excited. I'll fill you in on all the gravy, or you could watch it tomorrow. What else you got to do? Come on, man. We know. And shout out to Prometheus Peanut. Nigel in the chat. He says, I went 33 with no food once, and then Caribe Root goes 33 minutes. Good one, Caribe. Yeah, no, he said 33 days. Good for you, man. And Prometheus Peanut said he just subscribed to you. So got another subscriber. Sweet. Yeah. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys so much for hanging out all the way to the end. And thank you even for just coming in here at the end. We appreciate it. And if you're watching this sometime later, I live stream pretty much every Monday and Tuesday night these days. So I'm going to see how long I can keep that going. But it's for sure going to at least be every Monday. I might get back into stand-up comedy. So I'm going to start going to open mics, but I could probably stream after or whatever. But anyway, I'm excited about that. So look for that, everybody. Look for my book. You can buy my current book at shadowworked.com, shadowworked.com. I talk about, 9/11. I talk about my experience in the Marine Corps before that, going through my own dark night of the soul, then in 2020 witnessing like society go through an inverted dark night of the soul, like all that kind of stuff. So check it out. And and anything you want to plug at the end?
And then thank you for that, and let me know if you're doing comedy shows. I'd love to see that. And thank you guys in the chat. I really appreciate you. Spread this as much as possible. Share if you want to see more of this content. If you want to me to come back on or him to come back on, let us know in the comments, as we'll both upload it on our channels. And yeah, comment your questions if we do end up doing that, and what you'd like us to ask. Again, my information, if you want to reach me, is Sean Bond at PsionicLeague.com and PsionicLeague YouTube. Sean Bond on Facebook. Feel free to message me if you want a consultation or whatever. Healing, clearing abilities, a lot of free abilities on my YouTube. Please go to that. And we're going to an event in 5 days in Orlando. It's like this ET event thing. Gosh, I can't remember things on the top of my head, but that might be descriptions. Yeah. So
Shannon just said, much love, guys. I realized I was already subbed to Sean's channel. Ooh, look at that. And probably because of Zeralath. He spreads some stuff. So yeah, good stuff. Yeah, big shout out to Zeralath. He's the reason why we met. So big shout out to him. And like he said, if you guys want to hear us talk about something, comment below, let us know. If you have any questions, comment below. I have a zero tolerance policy on my channel for like nonsense. So I'll just delete you if you're trying to be nonsensical. But if you have a genuine question, act like a grown-up and we can have a discussion. Because there's so many bots, they're just like, get out of here. But anywho, thank you guys, and thank you again, Sean, for coming on. I had a really great time, and we will see everybody next time.
Thank
Later.
you. Good one.
Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. And